Hello and welcome to the Too Old for Forza YouTube page. This is Captain Nasty's here, and I'm going to be doing a video today that's a tutorial and introduction to SimHub, and specifically the Shake It plugin for that enables tactile feedback and the use of bass shakers. It's a phenomenal program for that particular applications. And just one other quick thing about SimHub, it's available on Race Department. I'll put the link in the description here, and please support people that make quality plugins, mods, etc., and give these guys a donation once you download their software. It's really cool. It does a bunch of other stuff. I'm kind of just scratching the surface. It does a bunch of enablements for fans, for rumble motors, for using tablets to have all kinds of telemetry and things like that on. I use VR, so I don't get to play with a lot of that stuff. So let's go ahead and jump on into the meat of the video here. And first of all, I just want to give you guys a really quick preview of my rig, and that's important because I'm using a 2-shaker setup that is set up for front and rear effects. So we'll transition over here to my start out looking at my amp. That's a Behringer inuke 1000 DSP amp. You can see the cable connected to the PC. That's my switch box to change the outputs. I have a flight rig and a sim rig, so I need different outputs. And here's the bottom of my rig. You can see that's an Aurora 50-watt bass shaker there with a little bit of rubber to help isolate some of the vibrations out of the rig. And then this is a Buttkicker Advance here, mounted to an aluminum plate that's about 3/8 of an inch thick, just mounted to the back there. So that's the rig and the 2-channel setup that I'm working with. And let's transition back to looking at SimHub here. So when you want to get SimHub set up to make your shakers work, I'm assuming you've already got your shakers, physically wired and connected and all those types of things. I cover some of that in my other tactile feedback video, and there's a lot of different places you can learn how to do that. So the first thing you want to do to set up Shake It is you want to tell it what sound card and output to use here. So you can see for this particular configuration, if you just select speakers, see it doesn't give you control over what effect is going to be going to what channel, and that is, I think this is one of the best things about SimHub, is you can do that and specify what effect you want going to where, and that's huge. So we're going to go ahead and check multiple sound cards, and we're going to make sure that the box is checked that's associated with our shakers and all that good stuff, and then we're going to give this a quick testaroo here and make sure. There we go, looking good. So this is the next thing you should configure, and this is where you want to send different vibration effects. So for me, channel 1 is the front shaker, and channel 2 is the rear shaker. So the things I want going to the front, obviously the front, right, and left vibration effects. For wheel slide, I want that going only to the front. I'll explain more about that later. For wheel lock, I only want that going to the front. And then you can see, I think that's all I've got going to the front, yes. For the rear, you can see I've got rear vibration both right and left, gas wheel slide, which is essentially when you're spinning the rear wheels, and then the gear shifts as well. So one thing you see, a lot of this stuff is not checked here: road texture, acceleration, deceleration. And my reason for not checking those is I don't want to muddy and have too much going on, because then you're not getting valuable information from your shakers. They're kind of just shaking and doing their thing all the time. And if you had a more advanced tactile feedback than I do, and maybe you have 4 or even 8 shakers, then you could assign these to individual different shakers, and I think then they perhaps will be more useful there. But for me, I've got a 2-channel setup, so I'm trying to kind of just get maybe the essentials, the stuff I'm most focused on. So let's jump into the next thing that you'll configure, and this is really the more tricky part that takes some serious playing with. And I'm going to import my old setting because I was messing around with some stuff. Turn those on. So again, here's where you can see everything you've got enabled, and this is where you're actually going to be configuring specific frequencies of response and how those responses are triggered. So I do not recommend checking the group similar effects settings here. That gave me some issues, and not something I recommend. So I'm going to go through just one of these and talk about what these different settings here typically do, and then we'll actually demonstrate them so you can see how all this works. So we're looking at front left vibration. And for feedback factor, I set this at 75. And essentially what this is it determines how dynamic the output signal is. So the higher that feedback number is, the more dynamic of an effect you will get. And for me, I found it was a little bit muddy above 75, and I was getting a lot of higher effects, which was kind of strange. So I ended up running that at 75. For minimum force, I set that as 0, so that's the lowest amount of audio signal that will be sent out and go to your shaker. So as this gets higher, it means that you're not going to feel soft things as you increase that. Everything's going to feel larger and larger, and having a high dynamic range in effects is really what makes tactile feedback work well. For maximum force, I set this to 100. It's just the standard setting that it comes with here, and essentially I'm not sure how that's totally different than the gain over here, but I really wanted to just kind of leave that at 100. That's something I need to mess around with a little bit more. It goes over 100, so I don't know if that's some other type of gain setting, but anyhow, for threshold, this is really the important one here. So threshold determines really how small of a signal do you want to begin generating any kind of feedback with. So if you set this threshold number down to 0, we'll do that here real quick. So you can see the curve, immediately you're going to start getting effect over very, very, very small bumps. And that might sound good, but for me, it got to be, again, it was too muddy, and I wanted to really only be feeling, larger effects and kind of cut down on the clutter that I was getting. So I opted to run this at 50, and you'll see the curve change again. So this is how I chose to set up my vibration. For the audio output, so as the signal gains in output strength, you can also associate a frequency with that. So essentially, the larger the bump, then the higher this frequency climbs, which doesn't make a lot of sense in some ways to have a this number be dynamic. But I've played with it quite a bit, and you'll see when you're going over bumps, the live output will be going up and down quite a bit. And I actually found this really to be give me a nice range. It is nice to have a range for sure. You can reverse this too, which I played with, and I still liked it the way it is. So for modulation, this is another really cool feature that other programs don't seem to have. So higher effects will be held longer. So that's the one I selected here. Most of my other settings you'll see we run on direct gain modulation, but for this one I liked adaptive. Fat, again, it just felt a little too muddy to me, and I definitely like adaptive the best. And so this is my front. You can see the frequency is 20 to 40 hertz. 20 is the minimum response range of my front bass shaker, so I wanted to set that as the floor, and then 40 hertz is when it really works pretty well, and that's kind of the bottom end of the sweet spot there for this shaker. And again, the front right it's exactly the same, because again I don't have right and left shakers, I just have front and rear. So just wanted to call that out. Now you might be wondering why I just didn't do right and left vibration. Well, you can't configure this setting with front and rear. You have to break it apart into 4 settings. So that's why you don't see those ones highlighted there. Make sure those aren't checked if you have a 2 shakers set up front and rear like I do. For rear, you can see it's the same settings in terms of strength and all that, but the frequency that I have set this to is down to 16 hertz, and that's because the Buttkicker Advance has better response down under 20 hertz. So I can get away with doing that, and definitely want to take advantage of all the goodness that comes with having a higher quality bass shaker there. Let's talk a little about the curves here too. So there's a million crazy different curves. C square, it just kind of kicks it up a little bit. Again, that made it a little bit muddy for my taste. Log, yeah, going to be pretty soft and kind of all feeling the same, and not that much output there. Sinus, so you can see there's a lot to mess with here. Really, for me, I think I've messed with some of the gamma stuff, and it's cool, but I end up just making my gamma curve look really pretty close to linear. So I like to keep it simple and just kind of leave this stuff all at linear for the vibration effect. Again, in right rear is the same. So wheel slide. So this is interesting. I've done a lot of testing. We'll show a video on this one. I was hoping this was just going to be front wheel slide, but it feels like some rear wheel slide is picked up too. You can see I have a threshold here, right, of plus 15 because I wanted to make it a sharp difference that was really detectable easily between when you're getting right at the peak of the tire. And I'm doing this so I can, get some extra help feeling, what the actual tires are doing. And this is a huge benefit, I think, for me being able to really get feel from the front end with this wheel slide. And of course, this is just going to my front shaker, and that's the story there. I did run a higher frequency here just to make it feel different than the vibration as well. So that's the thing, is you want to differentiate your different effects so that you can easily detect that they're different from one another. Wheel lock is essentially just when you lock the brakes up. And of course, that just goes to the front. It works just how you'd think it was. There's not much to tune here because it's configured pretty well out of the box. I just ended up setting it how you see here. And then acceleration slide. So this is essentially the rear wheel slip. So this one, I didn't want to have that abrupt feeling when you're hitting the limit of the tires in the rear end. I wanted it to feel more gradual. And this is the setting I wound up with. For that, it's very straightforward, just linear 50, 0, 100, 0. And again, the frequency is higher on the rear than my rear shakers, so it feels different. And again, these ones are direct light modulation for all of the tire slips. You want this to be very precise. You don't want this to be holding effects or telling you something's going on that's not going on with the tires. So I definitely recommend direct modulation for those settings. And then lastly, gear change. I hate to admit how much I like this one, but it is fun to get a kick in the butt every time you shift gears. So yeah, I think this is just how it comes out of the box. It's just the frequency I set to 44, just because that's really a sweet spot for my rear shaker as well. And again, that's on direct light too. 75%. This is a relatively strong effect, so 75% is pretty strong. I might even want to turn it down a little bit from there. But yeah, so that was some talk about how I've got it configured and why I've got it configured. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and enable live output. So this isn't there's so many cool features on this thing. So one thing, when you're setting this up on your own, I would recommend turning off other effects and tuning them all independently. So what I'm going to do here, just to show you, because I don't want there to be when you're tuning, it's a lot easier if you're just doing one thing at a time. So for the vibration effects, I'm going to go ahead and we'll open up rear left just for fun. You can see live output here, so that'll actually show you the audio signal that's being put out to Assetto Corsa. It's super helpful. So I'm going to drive it road Atlanta. I did some testing with this, and I wanted to test on Sebring because that's the notoriously bumpy track. But in my experience, the mod for that in Assetto Corsa, I don't know, for some reason, I had to turn down the threshold more to feel those bumps on that track than I do on all the other tracks, and so I didn't want to just make a video and tune it just that one track and have it work on everything else. So let's go ahead and jump into road Atlanta here. Yeah, tactile feedback, it's all very subjective too. So don't take any of this as gospel and telling you these are like the best settings. That's that's not what this video is all about. It's just kind of share my experience and give you some tips. And I'd be super curious to exchange some different effects presets with people through the Discord channel on SimHub. You can get a hold of me there. That'd be a fun thing to do. So okay, let's go ahead and have a drive, and you can see these effects now. So you're looking on the graph there of the output to my rear shaker, and only what the vibration effects are sending. And you can see with the bump in there, so you can see that when I clip the rumble strip, and you can see the car bumping around, the associated effect. It's really neat. But it's not too much. See, it's not constantly going off. You get low values. And when the car is relatively smooth, you don't see anything going on. We'll hit a nice bump here and show you. Yeah, so you can see we're at top. When you hit a rumble strip, you know it. And this just really adds to the sim racing experience. I'm not in VR for this video, so we could watch the output screen, but in VR, this stuff is just too much fun. Oh, going off. Oh, what a dummy. Well, you can. I did that on purpose so you could see the off-road and the bump effects there. That was all part of the plan here, guys. So what I'll do here is I'll just kick up the threshold number so you can see how what that does. We'll take it up to 7. Well, not 575. 75. Okay. So what you're going to see is basically less going on the output screen, because that means it takes a larger suspension movement to generate an output. You can see it's not. See, now the car's bumping around like crazy, and it's not really giving me anything. Let's see what it does in the dip here. Oh, well, let's see it in the dirt too. Yeah, yeah. So even here, right, a lot different. Do have the traction control off here and the TCS off, or the ABS off, because when I demonstrate the wheel slip, we're gonna want to not be looking at that. Yeah, so even on the relatively, at least this is a bumpy part of the track, I should be getting more love than that. Got to get better at driving while I'm looking at this output screen here, that's for sure. Do another quick little. And 75 is not a bad number. I ran this on 75 for a while, but I just want a little bit more of that detail. And you can, there's nothing wrong with adjusting this stuff and saving a profile for a particular car or even for a particular track. I think that'll probably be something I'll geek out on in the future. Yeah, big bumps there over the ripple strips, and yeah, I think that's something I'll definitely play with in the future. So I'm going to turn this back down to 50 before I forget to do that, and then we'll take a look next at the tire slip stuff. So again, we're going to shut off these effects so they don't muddy the water. We can feel just what we want to feel. And we're going to enable wheel slide and acceleration slide and wheel lock. And I'll do an output of wheel slide and acceleration slide as well, because there are differences, but and of course I have them tuned differently, but they're pretty similar. So that might be the one shortcoming I'd say this program has, is I would like more, differentiation between the front and the rear wheel here. So you can see I just spun the rear tires and the wheel slide did its thing. Now that's what I wanted, is that output when I push the tires. So I'm going to do some actual driving here. You guys can just kind of watch the effects and listen to the tires when I'm doing this, and watch the output screen, and you'll see how those two things are associated. So I'm going to shut up for a little bit. You could see that peak back there when you really heard the front tire squeal. That's just what you want to feel. Definitely gives you information about what the tire's doing. And I think this could certainly make you faster, really paying attention to these settings. It's just another cue about what the tires are doing. I don't see how that can be a bad thing. Whoa-oh! Again, you can see those tire slips, and you can see the effect output really go up, and again, that's exactly what you're shooting for with that feeling. So you can see the big increase as we lock them up there as well. And then, so I'm going to do one last lap here. I'm going to turn everything back on and enjoy the awesomeness that is what I'm going to call very good tactile feedback here. My rig feels totally dead without the vibration. It was money well spent. My setup cost me about $600, but I'd say it's definitely worth every penny. You know, I already had VR and a decent, you know, Fanatic wheel, and it really, I think, was the next best thing to spend money on. So thanks again for watching, guys, and hopefully this helped you figure out some of the intricacies of this Shake It plugin for SimHub. And oh, I'm getting my teeth rattled here. I'll do this. Let me open up one more of these vibration screens here. We'll look at that plus the slips. Feel the rear end getting away from me a little there. Definitely helps to have those cues, but it's not too muddy. And that's the key. So thanks again for watching, guys. Please check out the rest of our videos here on Too Old for Forza. We're a social sim racing club. We support races on Project Cars 2 on Xbox One and Forza 7 on Xbox One, as well as Assetto Corsa on the PC. And that'll do it, everybody. Have a good one.